30 seconds and counting.
How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to another video, and today we're going to be covering 5 potential free agents that the Houston Rockets could target in free agency. Now, in this video, before we begin, we are joined by a very special guest. Those of us watching who are familiar with Rockets content on YouTube will probably know him very, very well. One of the best Rockets YouTubers on here, and that is Swaggy. It's a very, very big pleasure to have you on here, and it's a great honor to have you on the show with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, guys. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. And we'll get right into it, starting with probably one of the best and one of the most targeted free agents out there for any team, and that is Atlanta Hawks power forward John Collins. And there's really an abundance of reasons for why the Rockets should sign John Collins. Starting with his age, he fits the timeline, but that's just one of the many reasons why the Rockets should go after John Collins, super talented player.
Yeah, I mean, Collins obviously is really athletic. He's a very consistent rebounds. Rockets, they want centers and that are smaller, that can stretch the floor, that can run in transition, and Collins does that. He is looking for a pricey contract this offseason. I heard around $27 million annually, so I don't know if the Rockets really can offer him that, but just his impact on the team, he's young as well. I believe he's 23. So, yeah, he'd be a really good fit on the team, for sure.
Yeah, I really like what John Collins could bring on this team, especially being as young as you said, 23 years old. Really fits the Rockets' timeline right now. He is a restricted free agent, so he could be most likely re-signing with the Hawks. But if he were to sign with the Rockets, I think that would be like the biggest get for us. I think if we just were to sign him and not go after anyone else, I think it'd still be a win. And Stone said he would be aggressive this offseason, so it would be really exciting to get someone like John Collins on this team.
Yeah, and again, there are technical issues. There is a small chance that he actually leaves Atlanta, but if he does, John Collins brings so much to the table that the Rockets need. He has the ability to block shots. He knocks down the three-pointer at a really good rate, which the Rockets really do need. They were one of the worst teams as far as three-point shooting was concerned last season, and a John Collins, Christian Wood front court is just such a power punch on the offensive side of the ball. And if you draft someone like a Cunningham in the draft, you are looking at a really good Rockets lineup for the future, and one that could probably be one of the best in the league over the next few years as far as young lineups go. Now, the next signing that we're going to be looking at is the center from the Sacramento Kings, Rashawn Holmes. Rashawn Holmes had a really good impact for the Sacramento Kings last season. Next to De'Aaron Fox, Buddy Hield, all of those guys, Rashawn Holmes had a very productive season, averaging 14 points per game, also averaged 8 rebounds per game. Rashawn Holmes is a really impactful center, and Scotty, can you let the audience know what Rashawn Holmes could bring to the table next to Christian Wood in that front court?
Yeah, so honestly, Rashawn Holmes is the only free agent that I actually want on the Rockets next season, just because of his defense. Obviously, he's very versatile, can defend multiple positions. Shot it in the pick and roll 80%, has a good floater. Holmes he's going to cost significantly cheaper as well. He's looking for around $20 million annually to Collins' $27. So overall, I think he'd help the Rockets defensively, but offensively as well. He likes to run the pick and roll, so him and KPJ, I think that'd be bread and butter right there for them.
Yeah, and Rashawn Holmes, he is an unrestricted free agent. And, one of the more underrated centers in this league. I feel like he doesn't get as much recognition as he deserves. And, yeah, he'd be a great fit for this team. This team does need another big. There are some options that we could pursue that are currently on our team, but we'll get to that later in the video. But, yeah, I think Rashawn Holmes, he's currently shooting in this last season. He shot 63.7% from the field. So, obviously, very efficient guy, and it will get you quality minutes. And, yeah, I think it would be a great signing for us.
Yeah, and Rashawn Holmes, the rim protection and the defense that he brings, something that we really needed. Christian Wood wasn't really able to do that last season. As far as rim protection goes, he brought everything to the table besides that, and that was rim protection, and that's an issue that Rashawn Holmes solved. And Rashawn Holmes, like Swaggy mentioned, is another role man that the Rockets could use. The Rockets ran a lot of pick and roll last season with either John Wall and Christian Wood or Kevin Porter Jr. and Christian Wood, and Rashawn Holmes is another weapon for Kevin Porter Jr. to use or John Wall to use if he's on the team next season. And it's just another guy who really fits our offensive scheme perfectly, and also brings it on the defensive side of the ball as well, which is a need for, especially at the center position. Now, looking at the next one, the next target that I think the Rockets should go after is Doug McDermott. This is a knockdown shooter forward on the Indiana Pacers. Doug McDermott played a huge role in the Indiana Pacers and what they got going last season, made the play-in tournament. He averaged 13.6 points per game, shot the ball at 38.8% from beyond the arc, so an absolute sniper. And I think he fits the Houston Rockets perfectly.
Yeah, I mean, Doug McDermott, as you mentioned, he's a knockdown shooter. He's got the size too, so it's not like he's another like 6'3", 6'2" guard. He's a legit 6'8", 6'9" guy. So I think his role would be really small. I mean, he'd come off the bench, he'd probably play like 20 to 22 minutes a game. But the Rockets, they just need 3-point shooting. They were the worst 3-point shooting team in the league. They also are an undersized team as well. So just getting a 3 or a 4 that they can roll out there, hit some timely shots, I think would be really beneficial for them moving forward.
Yeah, and Doug McDermott, adding on to the minutes that he's played. He's played 24.5 minutes, so yeah, I would assume a similar role for the Rockets. And yeah, he's this last season was his career year in points per game, in 13.6 points per game. That's the highest he's ever averaged in his career. And so yeah, that's a really a good get. I mean, getting any veteran who can shoot well, that I think that's one of the better veteran signings you can have in this league. So a really reliable guy in his career. So yeah, I would love the signing as well.
Yeah, Doug McDermott, he had a absolutely great season for them with T.J. Warren going down with injury. All their key guys in and out of the roster. Doug McDermott stepped up big time. He didn't miss a lot of games for them either, so he had that ability to stay healthy, which the Rockets had a lot of players going in and out of the roster, a lot of people getting injured midway through the season. And so having a guy who can be consistently healthy, consistently available is absolutely huge. And Doug McDermott brings that, along with, of course, spectacular on-court production with his knockdown three-point shooting and his 13.6 points per game. Absolutely huge for the Houston Rockets as far as floor spacing is concerned. And again, just another great pickup for the Houston Rockets. Now, moving to a guy who I personally brought to the list is Derrick Jones Jr. This is he's currently a forward on the Portland Trail Blazers. I think Derrick Jones Jr. could really use a situation like the Houston Rockets. He did not get a lot of minutes on the Portland Trail Blazers this season. He only averaged around 22 minutes a game. He was not played as much towards the end of the season by the Portland Trail Blazers, but I think he could really fit really well on the Houston Rockets. He is just 24 years old, and so I think Derrick Jones Jr. brings a lot to this table that I think really fits what the Rockets are doing right now, and also a lot of unique skill sets that the Rockets really could use.
Yeah, I completely agree. I don't know much about him, but he's a good defender. Obviously, he can jump. He's got a very high vertical. The one problem that I have with him is his 3-point shooting and his offensive consistency. I mean, we've already got Tate and KJ on the roster. Now you bring in Jones Jr. I mean, how does that really fit in with an already bad 3-point shooting team? So, me personally, I wouldn't go after him, but I can see the fit because of his defense and he can switch and things like that. But that's just my take.
Yeah, I think he would fit well with Silas's system. I think his system is very kind to bigs. I think Kelly Olynyk really said that he enjoys playing in Silas's system. So it really shows that the way Coach Silas implements bigs like Kelly Olynyk or Derrick Jones Jr. potentially would be a good fit for us. And he's most known for his spectacular dunks, but like you mentioned earlier, he was really underutilized in Portland. So yeah, he is. It's very likely he could be looking for another destination other than Portland in the offseason.
For sure. And again, Derrick Jones Jr., this is a guy that I brought up. One of the main reasons why I'm really sold on Derrick Jones Jr. is he is the kind of foil to the team. He's a kind of a glue guy. Again, we have all these players who do their little things, but Derrick Jones Jr. is a guy who kind of puts it all together. He has that shot blocking ability, despite him not being the tallest guy at 6'5". He still has a lot of bounce, like we saw. Of course, he has a lot of bounce, and he has the ability to block shots, and he is an excellent defender as well on the perimeter. He's a guy who can guard the team's best player, second best player, and he can guard them very, very well. Derrick Jones Jr., I think, for the defensive side of the ball, he's a great pickup. Now, as far as offense, as like you said, yes, he does have his limits. He's not the best 3-point shooter. His consistency is questionable. He has some great games and some pretty bad games, but Derrick Jones Jr., I think the signing here is more about what he brings on the defensive side of the ball, because the Rockets did have some struggles on the defensive side of the ball, especially as far as shot blocking goes. Now, the last player that I think would just quickly touch on is Malik Monk. He's the Charlotte Hornets point guard, and Malik Monk is a guy who I think, first of all, let me say what I think he brings to the table. Malik Monk, at just 23 years old, he has a lot of potential still in him. He was a top 5 pick, I believe, in his draft. He just wasn't really able to reach that potential in Charlotte. He's always coming off the bench, and I think giving Malik Monk a fresh start, he also had his struggles as far as off the court performances in Charlotte. I think giving Malik Monk a new home, a new situation could really, really help him really hit his potential. Maybe not his full potential as the top 5 pick in the draft, but still a really, really good role player for the Rockets. He averaged 11 points per game, which is a career high. I think Malik Monk, given a situation in Houston where he can really grow and reach his potential, I think he could have a leap forward like Kevin Porter Jr. did, especially also with his off-court issues as well.
Yeah, honestly, I don't want to lie. I don't want him anywhere near the Rockets. And the reason being is because, remember, they've got 3 first-round picks. So Cade is the goal. He would be a guard. KPJ would be a guard. And now we're paying Malik Monk to come off the bench. He's the odd man out in Charlotte. Like, you've got Graham there, you've got Rozier, you've got LaMelo, and he's the odd man out. I don't think you can bring him in because you're going to probably draft 2 guards out of these 3. Like, 2 of the 3 are going to go to guards. You also have to develop your others guards, like KPJ. He's gonna have to develop all these guys. So, like, I think Monk's good. He's also 6'3", which is good size. But overall, I wouldn't think he'd be a good fit on the Rockets just because, like, where would he really play? I mean, he's gonna want to get paid. Everyone wants to get paid nowadays. So for like his minutes that he'd provide us to the value, it wouldn't make a lot of sense. But I could see why like he needs a new change of scenery. But overall, I don't think it would make sense, honestly, for Stone.
Yeah, I mean, in this past season, he shot 40% from the 3-point line. The year before that, he was only 28%. So he is having a little bit of a career resurgence in Charlotte. So maybe he might start to seem like, hey, I'm with the whole youth movement in Charlotte. Let me just be with that, and he is developing well, I guess, in a sense. So he may feel inclined to stay there. But yeah, I think it really depends also on the results of the draft. Whether we get that top 5 pick, whether we land like someone like Cade or Suggs or Green or Mobley, and then we might pursue a guard in the offseason like Malik Monk. But yeah, I think Malik Monk, he's a very talented guy. But yeah, I agree. Not sure if he would be the best fit or best target we should pursue this offseason.
Yeah, and Malik Monk, I think, is a guy who his signing or not really depends on what you do in the draft. If the Rockets get the 2nd pick and get Evan Mobley or something like that, that's when Malik Monk is really on the table. But if we get Cade, like I said, I don't want Malik Monk on the Rockets either. There's just too many guards. John Wall, it's possible that he gets traded, but with his contract, it's hard to see him getting traded for any deal that's not going to be really, really bad for us. I think the Rockets, it really just depends on the draft as far as Malik Monk. But Malik Monk is more of a long shot. He's a guy who, again, I would have mixed feelings if he signed, but I think it's a possibility that we could go after him, just give him a second chance if he doesn't want a lot of money. But if he wants like anywhere more than $10-11 million, I wouldn't want him on the team either, because that's just too expensive for a guy who is going to be somewhere in the middle of the already jam-packed guard rotation. Now, before we wrap up the video, I just want to go through some quick re-signings on this team that we should go after. Obviously, Kelly Olynyk is a guy that we should re-sign. He was absolutely amazing for us last season, and I think we should keep him around as another guy in that center rotation, brings veteran experience. Kelly Olynyk is a guy that we should absolutely re-sign. DJ Wilson is an interesting one. Some people want him back, other people don't. I personally think we should give him one more season to develop, see how he does, and see if he can find his way into that long-term rotation in the future of our bigs. But I really do think that this offseason is going to be a very interesting one. As far as what we do in free agency, we might go all out in free agency, and we might do nothing in free agency. And I think either way, it's going to be very, very good for us. And I think I trust Rafael Stone and what he does. And I think we will have a very, very solid offseason, starting with the draft and then moving on into free agency.
And that'll just about wrap it up for this video. Again, these are just 5 potential free agents that all 3 of us combined came up with. If you have any other free agents that you want us to cover or talk about, leave it down in the comment section and we will talk about it there. Once again, a huge thank you to Swaggy for joining us on this video. It's been a great pleasure to have you on. And as always, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on post notifications, and we will see you in the next one. Peace.